Alright, so we're all set for our AJAX request. We're going to get the data that we need from the USDA API, and we're going to use that information to create our map markers and all the fun stuff that you saw on the sample there. So what I've done is I've pasted in the AJAX request right here. You'll see this yellow dotted line going all the way down. We've got, I don't know, 100 lines of code or so in here. And in here contains a whole bunch of stuff, and I'm going to go over it line by line, and we'll kind of look at some of the results as we go. So the request here is actually, the request is going to create another AJAX request right here. And this first one here and the second one here. So don't get them confused, there are two, and I'll explain why. So starting with the first one, we've got our AJAX request, all of our parameters set up here, and here's our access URL, the one that we had just worked on above. So this is going to point it to either the zip code search or the latitude and longitude search, depending on which of these two are used. So then down below on success, we're going to run this function. We're going to use the data that's returned, and we're going to go ahead and loop through that data. And when we loop through, what we want to do is we want to get the value of the ID. So the market ID here and the market name. So what we're doing is, if you see right here, we've got ID and we've got name. This is getting the value returned and the ID and the value that's being returned and the market name, and we're going to push each of those onto the appropriate array. So we have our market ID array and we have our market name array, and we want to fill that array with all the returned data that we're going to get. So if our search returns 10 results, we're going to have 10 IDs in here, we're going to have 10 market names in here in two separate arrays. So what we can do is we can actually go ahead and look at how that returns it. So we'll start off with the market name. I'll just uncomment the console log, save that, and we're going to go out to the I have two versions of this running, and I switched over to our final working version just so that we can see the results. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the console here, and there it is. Let's go ahead and refresh the page. Oops, console, there we go. Refresh the page. And so what we're doing is we're actually going to use the geolocation, which is feeding in, and it's actually going to log the different market names right here. So if you look back at our code, market name, we're just logging that, and this is the market name. So we're pushing each result onto the market name array, and we're going to view that just for testing purposes in the console. So of course it's plotting everything because this is a fully working version, but you can see down below here in the console what that's going to return. So obviously just the name isn't going to be enough for us, so we want to take that a step further. Let's go back to our code and we'll go ahead and comment that back out. And we'll uncomment the market ID. So as you can imagine, it's going to return market IDs instead of the market names. I'm showing you this because I want you to understand that there are two arrays. Each array is going to contain the market ID or the market name. So now we have the market IDs. Now this is the information that we need to return the detailed results from the USDA API. So if we go over to the API here and we look around, what this is showing you is the first set of results based off of the zip code are going to return the ID and the market name like we just saw. That's all it's going to return. To get the detailed information, we're going to have to do a second request using the ID, and that's going to return 4 more pieces of information: the Google link, the address, the schedule, and the products right here. This is what we're going to use to populate those info windows, those little pop-ups when you click the marker. So our step 1 is to return the ID and the market name. And then step 2, that's that second AJAX request that I showed you. That's where we're going to go and get this information. So we'll switch back over to our code, comment that back out, and we'll look here. So we've got a counter set up here, and the default is setting it to 0. and we're going to set up another loop, and this time we're going to loop through the market IDs, and we're going to do an AJAX request in every one of those iterations of the loop. So the first one's going to go through, we're setting up all the parameters like we had before. We're going to give it a URL, and this URL is different from the others we set above because this one is using the ID, and that's where we're going to get the value. So the value comes in here. We have a key and a value from our function, so we're just passing that in. So using the market IDs, passing them in right here, and on success, we're going to return all of the other results that we're really looking for. So in this data right here, what's going to happen is we're going to be able to pull the market name or the all the other information like we see here. So the Google link, the address, the schedule, and the products. So going back here, on success, our function that we're going to run is another loop, and the variable we're going to set here, so this is the data and the keys right here. So our results variable, and what we can do is let's take a look at that in the console to see what exactly that's going to return. So we'll save that, switch back over to our browser. We're going to look at the fully working version here. We're going to refresh our page, run it again, and here we go. Got a whole bunch of stuff that's returned. So we have these objects, and that object has the address, the Google link. Well, here's the address, the Google link, the products, and the schedule. So that's what we want to use to be able to do the little pop-up feature that we had here before. So if you click on the balloon or on the marker, you're going to get the little pop-up balloon thing here, and that's where that information is coming from. So let's cut back over to our code and comment that back out. So we've got that set up and stored in results, and now what we need to do is, if you notice that Google link, let's go look at that again really quick. So our Google link right here, the Google link, you'll see the fully qualified link right here. We don't want the whole thing. We want the latitude and we want the longitude pulled out of that. And that's what we're going to do here next. So let's cut back over to our code again. And here is where that happens, right here. In the link, we have an equal sign. So we're going to be doing a substring. Basically, we're going to be pulling it apart. And to do that, we're going to use substring and the index of, and that index of right here. So what we're doing is we're saying, okay, find the equal sign, go one further, and that's where we're going to start. That's the start of what we want to grab. And then the ending point is right here. And that's the opening parentheses. So Google link dot last index of, and that's what we actually want to target, is that opening parenthesis right there. So anything in between the equal sign and that open parentheses, so we'll go back and look at that again, and we'll look here. So we've got Q equals, so again, equal sign, so anything between that and this opening parentheses is what we want. Now we're going to have this URL encoding, the %20, all that good stuff in there, and we're going to be able to handle that here as well. So that's what this decode URI component is doing. That's going to just decode the %20. It's going to decode the URL basically and give us what we're looking for, just the actual latitude and longitude, and it's going to be comma separated. So from here, what we're doing is we're splitting it. So a split right here will split that variable into an array, and we're splitting it on the comma. So the comma that we had put in here between the latitude and longitude, we're going to now split it, and then we're going to go ahead and isolate those into their own variables. So we have a variable of latitude, and we're going to split, and we're taking split 0, so we're taking the first index of it. Longitude, we're taking the second one, because remember, arrays are 0 based. Now we're going to set our markers. My lat long right here is going to be populated by doing by passing in our latitude and our longitude. And this method right here, google.maps.latlong, accepts these two parameters, latitude, longitude, and that's how we're going to get those two. So our map markers now are going to be populated based off of the latitude and longitude that we ripped out of the Google link up above. And that's how we're going to store, or that's where we're going to store all of our marker information. So you hit the button, say based off your zip code, it's going to go and shoot a request out to the URL. It's going to return the information back. We're going to take the IDs. The IDs are then going to go back out, and we're going to say, okay, we have these 10 IDs, and we want to return the information from those IDs. And some of that information is going to be the latitude and longitude, which is buried in that Google link. The Google link will then be decoded and pulled apart and split apart into usable sections, passed back into the Maps API cleanly, so latitude, longitude, and now it's going to store that information into another array that we can then use to plot the points. So let's take a look at what it's going to return. So if we console log my lat long right here, we'll save it, switch back over, and we will refresh the page, pull this console up here a little bit more, and we will go ahead and run it. So there it is. So this is what Google returned. So we passed in the latitude and the longitude, and it's doing its thing, and it's going to return the information it needs to plot the points on the map. So you can see right here, latitude, longitude for all the results that we had just sent in. So it's going to do what it needs to do, and we're getting this nice, clean result set back. So going back to the code, so we'll comment that back out. Now, all markers right here. So this is going to set the marker parameters, basically, is what we're doing. So the position, the map feature, so we're going to render all the features on the map by doing this, and the title and the HTML. So this is controlling the markers themselves. And the position of each marker, my lat long. So again, this is within a loop, so we're going to go through, and the first one is going to take the first the first set within the my lat long array, and it's going to place that information here on position. Map, that's always going to stay the same. Title, so we have market name and counter. So here's where that counter comes in. So we have our market name, but if you remember, what's happening is originally we were able to return the ID and the market name right here. But on our second request out, what's returned is the Google link, the address, the schedule, and the product. So we've now lost the market name in this detailed request. So we're going to have to be able to track the market name and use it when we want to place that on the map markers. So to do that, what I've done is I set up the counter here on the top, and this is going to keep track of each iteration of the array, and we'll be able to go into our market name array and say, okay, we're on our first, second, third, and so on count of the iteration of this array. So go through the market name array and associate that with the appropriate market name, and let's use that. So the title, market name counter, so say market name 0 is going to be our first market name. So we'll go over and we'll look at what that does. So what happens is the title is what you use when you actually hover over any of the map markers. You see the 8.5 Gold Country Farmers Market right there. That's the title. So we'll go back to our code. There's your title. The styling of the info window is done right here. So we have HTML that we can pass into it. I have a class here called marker pop, and it's just got some basic styling, which is in our style.css style sheet that you can go and look at. Some H1, H3 tags, paragraph tags, and so on. But what we're doing here is we have a market name and our counter, again, like we had right up above. So that's our title. We're using it again here. And I have a substring that I'm using on here. So the reason I'm doing that is, let's go back and look at the code again, or at the sample again. If you hover over a map marker, you'll see it says 8.5 or 2.1 or whatever. So there's different numbers that precede each of the market names. And if you click on it, those market names up here no longer have that number. So what I'm doing is I'm pulling that number off. In this sample, I left it on here in this sample just to show you the difference between the two. That number is coming from the API. So if we go back over here and we look, you'll see right here it says 1.7, 1.9, 2.1, and so on. What that is the number before the market name is the distance in miles the marker is from the center of the zip code that was passed in. So another kind of design flaw there is they just went ahead and said, screw it, we're gonna just tack on the distance right on the market name. They should have really just put a distance parameter in there and used it that way, so you can kind of pull it off and on and whatever. But for whatever reason, they decided just to drop it right on the market name. So we wanted to get rid of that, and to do that, we use this substring, so substring 4. So it's basically just going to remove the first 4 characters out of there. Which should safely remove any of the distances that are on the title. Then we have our results and our address. So our results address here and an H3 tag. We have our results, our products, and you'll notice I'm splitting this. And again, the reason I'm doing that is formatting reasons. If we go back and we look at the products here, you'll notice that each product is separated by a semicolon. Visually it's just ugly, didn't like it, so what I wanted to do is I wanted to separate those with a comma. So if you go and look at here, baked goods, comma, cheese and other dairy products, comma. So the way we did that was just running a split right here. And so basically the way the split works is it searches for any semicolon, splits it there, dumps it into a new array, and it's going to separate every one of them with a comma. So then we have result and schedule, which is going to just dump the schedule just as we get it from the API. Okay, so now we're going to put all the latitude and longitude in an array, and we're going to need this so that we can create our viewports just down below here. The viewport is what you're going to see once you run a search. So right now our viewport is set to the entire country. So we see everything right here. Now if you hit the button, execute it, our viewport has zoomed in to our area of interest right here. Now we're doing this by finding the outermost map markers here and here, and here and here, and we're going to basically center those points on the screen. So back to our code, we need to start off by taking the my lat long and pushing that onto an all lat long array. So this is storing every latitude and longitude onto one array, and we're going to pull that out of the loop. So we're going to loop through. This is our loop right here, our for loop. It's inside of our loop, and we're taking all the latitude and longitude results that are being passed in. We're going to store it in an all lat long array, and down below we're going to then use it. So we need to populate the array here within our loop, and then run the counter again, and then go back through our loop. Once the loop is done, we're going to hit this section down here, and we're going to add a click listener for the markers, and this listener is what's going to pop up the info window. So google.maps.event.add listener, so all markers click function. So the all markers is what we populated up here. So there's our all markers array, and there it is there. So whenever you click on a marker, it's going to run this function, and it's going to set the content this.html. So info window open, map this. So this is basically all pulled from the Google Docs. This shows you how to do this. But basically, you're passing in the all markers. So all of your markers, your result set is going to be passed in. On click, your function that you're going to run, you're setting your content, and you're opening. So the last portion of this is creating our viewport bounds. So we are setting up a new variable called bounds and new Google.maps lat long bounds. So right here, we're going to store that into the variable. And now we're going to go through each of them. So we're setting up another loop, and we're going to go through our latitude and longitude, and we're going to extend it. So we're going to increase the bounds to take the point. So what that means is basically we're going to go through all of them, and we're going to find the outermost bounds, and we're going to extend it out as we need to. So every time we go through, it's going to hit the first one. It's going to say, okay, here's number 1, zoom way into it. Here's 2, back off, and so on. So we're extending the boundaries of our viewport every time. And then right here, fit bounds, bounds. So the map is going to then ultimately end up on one view level based off of the latitude and longitude that we pass in. And that's how you're going to do that. So if we look back at our sample, we'll close our console here, we'll refresh it, and again we have our initial viewport set at the United States, pass in information, and you'll see right here, so it's taking the outermost boundaries and it's going to zoom in and fit those map markers to these new boundaries that we've defined. So we'll go back to our code, and basically the rest of this is just closing off all of our loops and functions and everything else that we had set up here up above. So that about does it. If you have questions, feel free to ask in the comments below. I'll check them and I'll answer whatever I can. Again, all the code is going to be posted to GitHub. You can feel free to go ahead and download it, play with it, and use it whenever you want. I'll post that link down below as well. And feel free to sign up for my newsletter. I'm going to post that link as well down below. And I'll update you. I'll send you an email. I'll update you whenever there's new videos coming out. I'll be doing different things in the future. Some of them are going to be design related, some programming related. So we'll have JavaScript stuff, CSS, HTML5, PHP, a whole bunch of different things that I'm planning on putting out in the future. So if you want to get on my mailing list and be updated when new stuff comes out, feel free to do that. And that's about it. So thanks for watching. Hopefully it helped you out. Let me know if you have any questions.